Hey everybody, I'm Yvonne Williams with Back to Earth Creations, and in this video I want to show y'all how I make what I call a Byzantine wave bracelet. So here you can see just a little segment of it that I already have woven. I'm using two different ring sizes, 18 gauge 3/16 and then 18 gauge 1/8 inch. For kind of a smaller one, and that gives it a little bit snugger of a feel. But if you're using, maybe here I'm using 8mm beads, if you were using a larger bead you might just be using all 18 gauge 3/16. Lists of the tools and materials being used in this video will be down in the video description. That way, you know, it's not just me rattling off numbers. But let's go ahead and get started. So I have 9 beads done up in a way that's like a little link. Let me actually zoom in so y'all can see what on earth it is I'm talking about. So you can see here I've taken my 8mm bead and I've made a loop on either end, and here I'm using 18 gauge enameled copper wire. It's by Parawire. I highly recommend them. And the way that we do that, I'm just going to demonstrate real quick, is you're going to want to make sure that the wire will fit through the bead, and I'm going to come in about 1 centimeter from the end and do just a sharp little 90-degree bend like that. And here I'm using flat nose pliers, and then I'm going to come in with my round nose and grab it kind of as close to the tip of the wire as I can, but about, again, a 1/4 inch or centimeter in from the end of the plier tip, and then just wrench it around. And you can see it doesn't quite close all the way, so I'm going to reinsert my pliers and bring it to where it does close all the way. And my goal here is to make it look like a little balloon as opposed to like the letter P or a Q or something. And then I'm going to let the bead slide down, and now I'm going to do it on the other side. I'm going to use my very thin tipped flat nose pliers because it'll let me get real close to that bead, and then 90-degree bend. Now here I'm using flush cutters. They have a nice flat side and then a side that'll give a pinched cut. And I'm going to give myself about 1 centimeter of wire before snipping, and then I'm going to grab it with my round nose pliers and just cinch around. There we go. And you can see here they don't exactly line up, like it's not very like flat. So what I'm going to do is just grab it and wrench them around so that they do sit in line with each other. And so we'll have done that 9 times. And now over here, if I can bring the camera around, you can see we have some segments set up. And I call these units. It's 2-2 chain, where 2 rings are woven into 2 rings or woven into 2. Some people call it 2-4 chain, but it's basically, whatever you call it, it looks like this. See how that's kind of done? The way it lines up. And to do that, I'm going to start with 1 open ring with 4 closed on it. And I'm going to demonstrate here, whenever you're closing a ring, you want to make sure that you get a really nice, solid closure. You don't want any little pokey bits sticking out. You don't want any light or space in between the closure on the ring. You want it to be as though it were seamless. And so we've closed that one with the 4 other closed on it. And now I'm going to weave another open ring through those 4 that were hanging down, and I'm going to close that. And then I'm going to grab 2 of the rings and let it kind of hang down in a chain. I'm going to take, and you can add on the rings one at a time. This is just a little bit more of a speed weaving technique where they're already set up, but I've got an open one with 2 closed on it, and I'm going to hook through those 2 closed, just building off the edge, or building off the end rather, and close, and then grabbing up another ring, threading through those 2, and then threading through these 2. Now whenever you do that, you want to make sure, I'm going to demonstrate kind of how to do it incorrectly. You don't want to put a twist in it and then thread it through, because I mean, you're just going to have a hard time with it anyhow. But if it ends up looking something like that, you might want to go ahead and just remove your ring, let it relax, and then come back through. You want it to follow the exact path of the previous ring you had woven. And so there we go. Nice little segment of chain. And so now from there, to get that to become this nice little segment of Byzantine weave that we'll be using in our bracelet, I have our 18 gauge 1/8 inch rings, and we're going to grab one of our segments of 2/2 chain, and we're going to butterfly the end of it. So those two rings are going to come splayed, one to either side, just like that. And I'm pinching them together, and then these ones, you can see they kind of naturally almost want to split on their own. So I'm going to be hooking this ring through these two so that it sits like that. And I'm going to close it. And then I'm going to thread another ring through that same exact spot, just to beef up a little bit. I like the way two rings look stacked next to each other as opposed to just one. It doesn't look flimsy. And now we're going to come around to the other side. And you can see here, I actually grab one with my pliers and let the other fall to the side, and then bring it down, and then spread those two. This isn't exactly a weave that I would recommend for a complete beginner. It takes quite a bit of maybe a eye-plier coordination, but if you like challenging yourself or you have a little bit of weaving under your belt, I'd go for it. So then we just wove through those two again. And I've got one more unit to demonstrate this on before we start assembling our bracelet. And then you just set it on the table and it looks hopefully something like that. And so again, grabbing it by the end, letting one ring fall, and then letting this one fall to the other direction. Opening those ends, grabbing up our small ring, hooking through those two, and then closing. I've said it before and I think it's worth saying again, but chainmail is nothing if not repetitive. So if you're having difficulty with this on the first couple, don't sweat it, because we're doing this with like what, 9 or 10 repetitions just on this one bracelet. So I've doubled up that ring. Now we're going to go and do it to the other side. So, you know, a couple bracelets in and you'll be a pro at it. And just hooking and closing. And this is another reason why I really like having all the rings prepped up first, is then I can just come through and weave everything together. And you can see it's hanging kind of funny and butterflied out. That looks pretty neat, but that's not what we're going for. But whenever you sit it down and like tap it a bit, it was just, you know, gravity. So now you can see we have a couple more, just a pinch more of these 18 gauge 3/16 rings, our larger rings, and these are going to be what we use to actually assemble the piece. So to do that, you can see here, I had started by just doing one of the 18 gauge 3/16 through the eye of the loop, as well as those two small rings, and just repeating around. So let's pretend like we're starting from the beginning, which I guess really we could start from the other end. So what we would do is take one of our rings, open, and hook on through those two small, and then I'm going to hook through the loop of our 8mm link bead. And then I'm going to, this would actually be a great time too to add, if I'm going to be using a clasp, you can add a clasp of your choice. I really prefer the lobster claw clasps, like this. This is, I believe, a 14mm, like 14 by 7mm lobster claw is a pretty good size. The measurements might be off, but it's a size that typically whenever I order more clasps, that's the size I use. And so our clasp is on there. That gives us a little something to hold on to as well. And we're going to come around and pick up another one of these open rings, hook through the link, and we want it to be in line. See how it's kind of laying flat? We don't want it to be like twisted or anything like that. So bring this end around, and without any twists in our Byzantine chain, I'm just going to hook through, beep boop, just like that, those two. Now, to do what would be called the Romanov weave, or at least that's a name I've seen it be called, is you would do this on either side of the bead. And I may do a tutorial for that in the future if y'all would like. So be sure to leave a comment down below if you're like, yes, do that, please. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another link and then another Byzantine unit. Just hooking through and then closing. And I really like my bent nose pliers and these kind of stepped nose pliers because it lets you get in there into the small areas, you know, where it gets kind of tight weaving sometimes. So you can see how that's coming along. So I'm just going to bring it around, hook through with those two, hook through our link, add another unit of Byzantine, and then add another link. And you want to keep maintaining that opposition that, you know, the links are separated by Byzantine units. So also here you can see how that would kind of look. Though if you were doing this with the Romanov weave, instead of an 8mm bead, I would recommend a 6mm, because you can see this one's taking up just a little bit too much space for it to come around. And so that's hanging down like that. And I'm going to hook, oops, pinion rings, pick up another ring, hook through the link, hook through those two, hook through a link, hook through those two on the Byzantine unit, and then close. So like I said, it gets pretty repetitive, but it's really nice, I think, to see it come together. Oh goodness. Okay, hooking through the Byzantine and through the link. And I really like this. The gemstone that I'm using here is just a banded agate, which I think has such a nice variation between each bead. Hooking on the Byzantine and hooking on the bead. And close. And so now whenever we're joining the two pieces together that we've made, you want to make sure that they're maintaining that opposition. And I'm going to take an open ring, and I'm just going to hook through the link, and then through the Byzantine, and then through the link, and through the Byzantine. And then I'm going to close that up. Now also, and this is something that I could also do a tutorial of in the future if y'all are interested, but you could just weave one long Byzantine bracelet and then using like a tiger tail or fireline beading wire, just string through. The weave would be slightly modified, but if you don't want to do the, you know, the wire links, you could totally bead string this, and it gives a slightly different look, but I really like the way that the solid metal looks too. And so now from here, to make this end a little bit more accommodating to being clasped to, as well as making it adjustable for sale out of our booth, I'm going to take some more of just these open rings, and I'm going to hook through and just extend it into some 1/1 chain. You could use store-bought like mechanized chain, but I feel like I've got these rings right here. May as well do the same color tone, because the metal that I'm using here is German silver colored anodized aluminum. I think it's champagne on the Ringlord website. There we go. And you could make that however long or short as you like. But I really like being able to just come through, hold on to that, bring it around, and you could hook anywhere on those chains. And that's how to do it, guys. If y'all have any questions, comments, or ideas, I'd love to hear from you. I'm not good at putting bracelets on without getting my head in the way. Where's that trick? But yeah, be sure to leave a comment down below if you guys have any tutorial requests or anything like that. And if you enjoy my free tutorials and would like to support the creation of more of them, please consider finding me on Patreon or any of my social media. Links to those websites will be down below as well. But on them, I do periodic giveaways, I do artist features, so if you tag me or share stuff to my wall, be sure to link to your Etsy stores and different things. That way I can direct people in the right direction to find you. And on Patreon, we do monthly craft crates, so you can actually get the materials to weave your own jewelry alongside me in these tutorials. But yeah, I love how that looks. It's such a fun bracelet. And it's also, this is a great charm bracelet too. You can add little charms onto these links there. But yeah, thank you so much, guys. And until next time, happy crafting. Bye.